Welcome back. Let's jump right into this. Today we're unpacking a topic that sits right at the bleeding edge of biotechnology and human health. We're looking at a fascinating explainer covering an initiative that proposes radically unconventional solutions to some of our absolute most pressing global medical challenges. Let's map it out.
Wait, what? I know, right? Could the future of human medicine actually rely on genetically modified pigs? Now, I know it sounds exactly like the plot of a sci-fi novel, but as you'll see from the source material we're exploring today, this absolutely isn't fiction. It's a very real, very active field of proposed medical research.
Okay, let's dive into this. At the core of this entire initiative is a concept called xenotransplantation. Basically, that means moving living cells, tissues, or whole organs from one species to another. In the context of today's explainer, we're talking specifically about moving biological material from pigs to humans. That is the foundational mechanism driving literally everything we're about to look at.
Which brings us to the organization at the center of our source material today. Meet PORCOMPLEX. It's a biotechnology and clinical research initiative developed and coordinated by a parent company called MassHorsing Corporation. And their stated mission? It's massive. They are aiming to address the critical worldwide shortages of human organs, tissues, and blood products. Their proposed solution is providing clinically certified, genetically modified porcine, or pig, resources that are completely compatible with human and veterinary medicine. They're essentially trying to solve a very real human supply chain problem by engineering an entirely new biological one.
And this brilliantly illustrates a crucial distinction. PORCOMPLEX makes it explicitly clear that their animals are absolutely not conventional livestock. We are not talking about food production here. Instead, these are clinical-grade subjects raised under incredibly strict genetic monitoring and intense biosecurity. They require permanent veterinary supervision and, of course, ongoing ethical oversight. Essentially, you have to look at them as highly regulated living medical technology.
So what is the actual medical utility here? Well, the initiative focuses heavily on vital regenerative programs. Because porcine organs are remarkably similar in size and function to our own, they are actively developing hearts, kidneys, and livers intended for human transplantation. But it doesn't stop at whole organs. They're also working on clinical-grade tissues for severe burns and even researching porcine-derived blood components to address massive blood bank shortages. It's a potential game-changer for emergency medicine.
But, and this is where the scope of this project widens dramatically, they aren't stopping at critical care. The source material reveals a huge pivot. Beyond life-saving transplants, PORCOMPLEX is actively targeting aesthetic medicine and even human lifespan extension.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is exactly how they plan to apply this biotech to aesthetics and aging. They are proposing things like biological breast reconstruction, basically using bioengineered porcine tissues as a living alternative to synthetic silicone. They're researching follicular grafting for hair restoration and using biological tissues instead of synthetic fillers. And then, under trademarks like Porcos Extension Life, the research shifts entirely to extending healthy human lifespans through aging organ replacement and cellular anti-aging treatments. I mean, going from emergency trauma care to everyday longevity is a massive lead.
Of course, to support this wildly ambitious range of medical and aesthetic goals, you need serious physical infrastructure. Enter the PORCOMPLEX Comoros project. They are planning to establish the world's first transgenic pig laboratory farm in the Comoros Islands. This facility is slated to feature highly secure breeding environments and relies on international scientific partnerships to operate on a truly global scale. They are literally trying to build the new epicenter for transgenic clinical research from the ground up.
Which naturally leads us to a very practical question, and you might be wondering this right now. An initiative of this magnitude, combining genetic engineering, global laboratory farms, artificial intelligence, and anti-aging research, well, that requires an astronomical amount of capital. So how on earth is a futuristic biotechnology ecosystem like this funded in the present day? Let's move to and see how this builds. According to their fundraising materials on DonorBox, that capital is channeled into a highly structured vocation of funds. It basically goes into four main pillars. First, you have research and development, mostly for lab equipment. Second is biotechnology infrastructure to build out those experimental farms. Third, medical technologies like AI-assisted healthcare tools and robotics. And finally, intellectual property, because you absolutely have to secure the patents to own these breakthroughs. But here is the real twist. While you might expect this entire thing to be exclusively funded by massive pharmaceutical venture capital, PORCOMPLEX is actively engaging in grassroots crowdfunding. Through their partner DonorBox, they're accepting public donations in super accessible tiers: $5, $25, $50, $100, and $500. They're actively inviting individuals, families, and everyday supporters to directly fund this highly experimental research ecosystem. It's an incredible democratization of biotech funding, essentially asking the public to open their wallets to literally build the future of medicine.
So, the crucial point is that we have to ground all of these incredible possibilities in reality. The source material includes a very clear disclaimer regarding their regulatory status. Right now, today, this technology is firmly in the experimental stage. Before you or I could ever receive a porcine-derived treatment, it has to pass rigorous scientific validation, it has to survive extensive human clinical trials, and ultimately, it has to secure strict regulatory approval. It's a grand vision of tomorrow that is still navigating the intense scientific and legal hurdles of today.
Which brings us to the official slogan of the entire initiative: supporting research today to help create the technologies of tomorrow. They are totally transparent about the fact that they are at the very beginning of a long, complex scientific journey. They're trying to engineer a future where the line between human medicine and animal biology is seamlessly integrated to save and potentially extend our lives. The science is moving incredibly fast, and the funding models are evolving just as quickly. So I'll leave you with this to think about. If this rigorous clinical-grade research successfully passes all those regulatory hurdles we just talked about, would you be willing to embrace a genetically modified, porcine-derived medical future? It's a question we may all have to answer sooner than we think. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions and never stop learning.